I'm Tiffany Wong with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Indigenous Amis people in flood-ravaged parts of eastern Taiwan are asking for their voices to be heard. That's with volunteers from around Taiwan traveling to Guangfu Township to help with the cleanup.
对部落来讲，我们需要一个安全的暂时的居所，好，就是我们提出来的这个集中的中继安置。集中的中继安置，我要强调，这个不是永久屋，这不是永久屋，因为部落族人他在这个中继的安置的居所这里呢，他可以我们要离灾不离乡，好，远离灾难，但是我们不要远离家乡。
About half of Guangfu's residents are members of the Indigenous Amis community. Their representatives want to ensure recovery efforts don't overlook the health of displaced residents. They want a seat at the table in order to ensure that recovery efforts meet their community's needs. With more storms expected, they want to prevent future floods and keep residents and volunteers safe.
那我们那么多的热心的志工进去帮忙清理家园，接下来慢慢的我们要重建家园。 开始有居民要把他的积蓄拿出来，要去买一些家具、买一些家电了。那请问，下次又淹水的话，如果在2次受灾的话，请问大家受得了吗？
Local leaders are also raising concerns that some of the evacuation facilities have been compromised. They are hoping to prevent volunteers from also being affected by future floods. Officials in Hualien County are encouraging volunteers to help out there after the flooding, but they insist that those who go there follow their instructions. Irene Lin reports.
Bulldozers and excavators continue to clear out streets and homes a week after a breached natural dam inundated this town in eastern Taiwan's Hualien County. Over half of the town of Guangfu is still submerged in mud, especially lowland areas, after the Matai'an River overflowed. While emergency teams continue to search for the 6 remaining missing people, officials say they finished installing temporary levees to prevent the river from overflowing if the dam breaches again. Workers are clearing the mud and debris around the clock and transporting it out of town. There's also been an outpouring of civilian volunteer help in the past week. But since Monday, many volunteers have gone home for work and school. Officials here say they hope more volunteers come, but that it's important they wait for authorities to assign them locations rather than wandering around town.
到了灾区以后，我们会做在光复车站会做一些分配。那这些分配，我们是军用的卡车会把我们分配的志工带到我们的7个村的某一个村，因为我们现在规定所有的轻淤的车辆都是单向行驶。 那如果是说采取双向，还有人太多的话，不仅会造成危险，而且也造成我们工作上的迟缓。所以我们希望我们的志工能够尽量来，但是我们也是希望志工进到灾区之后，能够受到我们军方的节制。
来，要做志工吗？来，集合一个人的力量哈，来变成大力量，来。
At the Guangfu train station, organizers of civil groups stand in front of their booths to guide volunteers to resources and tools needed for cleanup. There are also officials on site to guide them to shuttle buses heading to their assigned places. One Tunisian volunteer who traveled from northern Taiwan says he's glad to see how society mobilizes at a time of crisis.
Any kind of disaster or some big help needed, everyone will come together. So this is something good, and it's nice to see something like this in Taiwan here. Like I'm seeing many people coming from Kaohsiung, Taipei, Hsinchu, like everywhere, coming from everywhere. It's really nice to see something like this.
One local living in the town center recalls the day the floodwater rushed into his home and says he's grateful to have help from strangers from other parts of the country.
很感人，很感谢政府，最主要是那个马滩西人处理好就好了啦，其他的家园是我们自己要努力啦。
The military and volunteers are working to make cleanup operations more efficient as they brace for a second wave of volunteers over a second long weekend coming up. With another typhoon approaching Taiwan from its southeast and more heavy rainfall expected here in the next few days, locals only hope that their cleanup progress will not go to waste.
World-renowned English zoologist Jane Goodall has died aged 91. Goodall was widely recognized as the world's foremost expert on chimpanzees, working on conservation and animal welfare issues around the world. Goodall made several visits to Taiwan, most recently in June, to promote coral conservation. In 1998, she helped set up the Jane Goodall Institute in Taipei, promoting education on environmental issues. President Lai Ching-te honored Jane Goodall in a Facebook post, praising her commitment to protecting the environment. A Taiwanese defense official spoke at the Warsaw Security Forum, emphasizing the mutual benefits of Europe's support for Taiwan.
In Europe today, you are fighting your own security, but with the help that you help us, I think we can prevent the possibility war in Indo-Pacific. So help us and help you.
Xie said Taiwan has devoted substantial resources to boosting its defenses and is willing to share with Europe its experience countering information warfare. In response, retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Mark Montgomery said that if China imposed a military blockade on Taiwan, tech companies like TSMC and UMC would be forced to halt operations, a blow that would hurt Taiwan and have severe economic consequences in Europe.
Because if we lose access to TSMC, UMC, and their supply chain, that's not just the high-end chips in your phone. That's the legacy chips that proliferate everything else. There'll be a worldwide economic, recession at a minimum.
Montgomery said NATO should pass a joint resolution supporting arms sales to Taiwan and strengthen cooperation through joint training. The Coast Guard has driven 2 Chinese vessels out of restricted waters near Taiwan's Dongsha Island.
全程并航监控持续驱离。晚上6点15分，中国海警船31洞3及31洞5于东沙岛西南方海域往西航离东沙限制水域。
The Coast Guard detected the vessels Tuesday morning and sent 2 ships to drive them away. Dongsha is claimed by both China and Taiwan and is commonly known as Pratas Island. The island is a national marine preserve close to tourism and fishing. Taiwan's Coast Guard has tallied 159 cases of Chinese vessels entering Dongsha's restricted zone this year. It is calling the latest incursion part of China's gray zone tactics, actions that put pressure on Taiwan's military but fall short of open war. Chinese fighter jets carried out mock missile attacks on a British warship as it sailed through the Taiwan Strait in September. UK Royal Navy officers gave detailed accounts of the HMS Richmond's passage through the Taiwan Strait on September 13th to the Times newspaper. The frigate, sailing as part of a UK carrier strike group, was targeted by Chinese fighter jets that initiated so-called constructive kills, simulated attacks in which pilots go through the motions of launching missiles, stopping short of actually firing. The Royal Navy also reported harassment by Chinese warships in late September when the frigate sailed through the disputed South China Sea. U.S. farmers are facing a crisis as China effectively ceases imports of their soybeans. It comes ahead of a planned meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping this month. Chris Gorin reports.
It's harvest season in the American Midwest, but that's cause for concern more than celebration for local soybean farmers like Chris Gold.
There's a lot of pain going on the countryside right now.
The pain comes from the loss of his biggest customer, China.
China has been our #1 customer for soybeans, and I don't know exactly when you start counting that, but let's say the last, 20 years, a significant portion of our soybeans have gone to China. And when we started disrupting international trade, they kind of started looking for alternate sources. As far as I know, for the 2025 crop, they've bought 0 U.S. soybeans.
U.S. President Donald Trump says China isn't buying U.S. soy for negotiating purposes, adding that soybeans will be a major topic of discussion at a planned meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping at the APEC summit this month. Soybeans used to be the top U.S. export to China, accounting for more than half of America's total soy exports last year, about $12.6 billion worth. But as tit-for-tat tariffs between the countries have escalated, China put a 20% tariff on U.S. soybeans, and Chinese imports of it have effectively stopped since May. Meanwhile, it's shifting to buying from countries like Argentina. Trump previously said U.S. tariff money could be used to help farmers.
And we're going to take some of that tariff money that we made, we're going to give it to our farmers, who are, for a little while, going to be hurt until it kicks in, the tariffs kick into their benefit, which ultimately the farmers are going to be making a fortune. But it's a process of, it has to kick in. All right.
But U.S. farmers might not be the only ones getting a boost. The U.S. and Argentina are currently negotiating a potential $20 billion currency swap to bolster the South American country's financial system. Soybean sales could be a part of those negotiations. But farmers like Gold say they want more trade, not more aid.
We need our government to do their job, which is not write emergency aid checks to us, but to promote worldwide trade so we can earn our income like we need to.
With billions of dollars on the line, all eyes now look to the meeting between leaders of the world's two largest economies. Hank Shu and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Postal Service is resuming shipments of small parcels to the U.S. in line with new guidelines from Washington. In late August, Taiwan and several other countries suspended shipments of low-value packages to U.S. recipients due to unclear tariff rules. Now, Zhonghua Post says it has received guidance from the U.S. that parcels containing non-commercial items valued up to $100 will remain exempt from U.S. customs duties. The previous exempted value was $800. Last year, Zhonghua Post delivered around 340,000 packages to the United States. The Asian Development Bank has cut its forecast for Taiwan's economic growth next year, pointing to high U.S. tariffs and ongoing trade uncertainty. It's lowered the 2026 outlook from 3% growth to 2.3%. The bank says exports have stayed strong this year thanks to a rush in tech and AI-related orders ahead of the new tariffs. But it warns growth will likely slow in the second half of this year and into the next due to restrictive U.S. trade policies and weak demand at home. Police in South Korea's capital have rolled out an innovative way to project force and bring a sense of security to an area prone to crime. Tim Smith has this story.
안녕하세요. 서울 중부경찰서입니다. 서울 중부경찰서는 중부청과 함께 더욱 안전한.
A year ago, police in downtown Seoul's Jung district came up with an unusual plan for augmenting patrols. They began projecting holograms of officers onto life-size cutouts to reassure residents wary of crime at a local park. The virtual officers pop up every 2 minutes between 7 and 10 p.m. throughout Jungdong Park and come with a wry warning to smile for the CCTV cameras. The holograms also come with an emergency button next to the cutouts just in case someone needs to alert actual flesh and blood police. The idea came from Officer Kim Soo-hang. She wanted to create a visible police presence to reassure friends and family worried about walking through the park at night.
We project a video onto a life-sized acrylic signboard from behind. That way, the holographic video is displayed across the whole figure from head to toe.
The cop pop-ups have turned out to not be just for show either. They've apparently had a noticeable effect. According to city police records, crime in the area dropped by 22% between the start of the projections in October 2024 through May 2025, notably robberies and assaults.
Since these crimes are triggered by sudden bursts of emotion, it's usually very difficult for officers to intervene beforehand, which makes prevention challenging. In that sense, the visual message that the police are always watching helped raise awareness and acted as an effective deterrent.
But do residents in this Seoul neighborhood feel safer with the cutouts?
It looks just like a regular person. And when I see it at night, since it really feels like there's a police officer standing right next to me, that makes me feel safer personally.
Others may not be so certain. A British criminology professor says that despite the shimmering silhouettes issuing their tiny warnings from the shadows, crime could rise again once the novelty wears off. But for the time being, they're light in the darkness. Scott Wong and Tim Smith for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, we take you to a Paris fashion show where stars and models shine on the runway. I'm Tiffany Wong. Take care and see you next time.